Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to class 2. It was quite a bit of information last week. Thank you for sticking with it. Thank you for those who sent me a little bit of their homework. I don't need a lot because we spend too much time, going through homework rather than getting onto the new projects. But it's good to look at a little bit because often people are having similar issues, or it kind of isn't. It acts as a nice review of the previous week so that we can go forward. So that's why I like to have a few pieces. So thank you for sending me those. And I think we're just going to jump right into it. And I was thinking of sharing my studio space with you guys a little bit and giving you a tour, but I think we'll save that for next week since it's so messy today. And also we have a ton to cover. This week really is my favorite week. It's better experience, I think, in studio because I have a whole bunch of color swatches and cards that I've made up over the years like this to show relationships of colors. So I've adapted it a little bit with some stuff that I found on the internet and combined so that I can control the lighting situation, because the last time I did this, one of the things that I noticed or we realized was like not everybody's monitor is calibrated the same way. The lighting might not be great, and people sometimes have the hard time seeing what we're going to look at today, simultaneous contrast and halations and relational color elements. It's just mind-boggling. It's just so great. You guys, I'm really excited to present this because I'll tell you, when I learned about halations from an artist in Hawaii, I guess in my mid or late 20s, I did a workshop with a guy named Dick Nelson. And I think I mentioned him last week, but when I saw this idea of halation, it changed everything. And I had to dive into learning about color in a whole different way. So it was a really transformative class, even though when I think back at it, it didn't really say much new. It just showed me one thing, and one thing triggered this fascination or obsession with some color elements and relative color. So without much ado, let's just skip over to this. So I mentioned Dick Nelson, who actually, one of the reasons why he's such a good teacher is that he studied with one of the foremost art teachers in the 21st century, German fellow who immigrated to the US just before the Second World War and taught at Yale, Black House School, or Yale for sure, Blackburn School of Art, and is regarded as one of the foremost teachers in art history in the last 100 so years. It's important to know his work. You've probably seen some, and a lot of what I'm teaching today is really a lot of his theory. 1 second, there's some noise coming from the hallway. I'm going to close my second door here. And okay, thank you. So one of the things that he taught was this idea of simultaneous color or interaction of color. He has several books entitled Interaction of Color, and he's well worth a Google. I'm not going to get too much into his history or his teachings, but let's put it this way. One of the students was Robert Rauschenberg, and another was, off the top of my head, Mark Rothko, and many others as well. So, oops, what do we got going on here? Okay, so this was some of our homework from last week, the color wheel. I feel like it's so important. Most everybody calls it a color wheel, and I've been training myself to call it a color compass. Some of you may have caught me out last week using both. Color compass to me is more accurate because it's like a guide, and it will guide you out of the woods. You should make and update your color compass regularly, and keep it handy until you know it like the back of your hand, until it becomes intuitive. So this example here, I thought there was one of the students that submitted this, which is a very nice color wheel, really well done. The colors are all placed in the correct space with the cool and the warm yellow, the ultramarine blue and the phthalo blue. You can see one leaning towards the green side. The vibrance, this person did an amazing job with the secondaries, but I do want to point out this violet here. And one of the interesting things, and one of the comments to this student was about balancing the color between two colors, finding the balance between two colors. I have another color wheel submitted. I want to show you the difference. This, as you can see, the violet color here leans towards the red side. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think to practice, to try and nail this in a color wheel, it's important to try and get it right in the middle, because it's good training. Okay, it will train your eye, and you need to know how to find that balance. And with different colors, it can be different challenges. So a couple of the issues that come out of that are because some pigments, so it's not that the question is like, is it 50-50? Sometimes it is, yes, but there are other color characteristics that influence the color mixing, like the intensity of the pigment, the value of the pigment, the opacity of the pigment, and they all play a role. So the answer is no, it's not necessarily 50-50 in terms of a baking recipe, right? But it's 50-50 in terms of information of light reflected back to your eye, which may require more or less of one or the other paint, depending on what you're choosing. If we look at the green, and you're trying to make a nice balance between the phthalo blue, which is really dominantly staining pigment and a darker value, compared to the yellow she's using, I think is a Hansa yellow, then that Hansa yellow is much more transparent and an inherent lighter value. So you're going to have to use more yellow than you are that Prussian blue, or not Prussian blue, phthalo blue. Another thing that influences that Prussian blue leans already quite close to the green side of the spectrum. So it requires less pigment to push it that way. Do you understand? Good. Just a nod of the head is good. I want to show you the difference then. We'll just blow this guy up at the bottom and see the violet here. That clearly leans towards the blue side, right? Compared to the previous one leaning towards the red side. Okay, let's put those back into place. Oops, sorry. There we go. Okay. Before we get on to the next slide, there's two ways of mixing these neutrals in the center. The next artist did an amazing job with mixing the tertiary or also called neutrals. So you can choose two colors that are distant from one another in the color wheel. So here, to get the vibrant, we're mixing colors that are close together in the color wheel. Another way is mixing colors that are distant from each other. And the second way is by creating a vibrant green and then adding its complement, which is red. So a tertiary color are three primaries, correct? So if we start with a secondary and add the third color in the color wheel, the third primary color in the color wheel, then we're creating a tertiary, and you can control better the intensity or chroma of that pigment, which I hope to demonstrate for you in a little bit. Okay, so my preferred way is to find colors and create a intense color and then make it more neutral. If you're a watercolor painter, for almost any kind of painter, doesn't matter, watercolor painter really, it's really hard to mix colors and make them a higher chroma. Almost always when you're mixing two colors together, you're lowering the chroma, or another word for chroma, intensity. So I like to lay my intense colors down first, or create an intense color, and then knock it back accordingly to the chroma, the desired chroma. Okay, I want to switch slides again and go to this beautiful, absolutely beautiful neutrals. And one of the things that I thought about this particular one was this use of finding the tertiaries, but also when we think of grays, we often think of just flat, muddy colors. You should really keep your neutrals or tertiaries with a dominant leaning. In other words, don't mix your tertiaries equally of your three primaries, or what will happen if you do, you'll get black eventually, right? So what you want to do is decide, is this going to be a cool or warm tertiary? Do I require a tertiary that leans towards the red, a tertiary that leans towards the green, towards the yellow, towards the violet, and proceed in that manner, rather than just starting with a mix of three of your primaries and going, great, I've got a gray. What type of gray do you want? Not all grays are created equal. Look at here. Just beautifully done. This person gets a pat on the back from a distance. Put that slide back. We did this color value study, which I don't really need to spend much time on. I think both these people did a really good job with that gradation of value, that pure down to the white. I think it's important to look at the value, what we call the intrinsic value of our color. Look along the top row, out of the tube value, and look at the yellows compared to this dark. I'm guessing it would be like, looks like some, I guess, like, I don't know, it could be cobalt or phthalo. Yeah, maybe phthalo blue or Prussian blue, something like that. And this one looks more to be the ultramarine because it's got a little red tinge to it, but well, that's not important. So I think it's important to do this exercise with your colors so you know what the range is. And whether you're working with watercolor oils or acrylics, when you're working with acrylics, it's pretty important to be able to go in both directions. Adding black, remember I gave you the assignment. I don't have anybody who has submitted that, so I won't share the homework with you, but tinting and toning. So we're going to add white or or black, and you can darken or lighten the value of the color. But when you do that, of course, you change the chroma. That's very important to know. Color matching exercise was fun. This was absolutely fantastic. Just absolutely loved it. The color matching is brilliant. Nothing to say. It's just well done. And a fantastic photo. And I also love the photo because it's a great example of a halation, photographic halation. You see here, we might come back to that right here. Okay, this is called a halation, comes from the word halo. And this was interesting, that probably a more challenging color match, to be sure, a more challenging, because within that color, there are so many different colors. So learning how to get two colors to blend together, I find it so important, because especially in watercolor, but also with oils or acrylics, it's just as important, because you know, you want to let the water do the walking kind of thing in watercolor and let two colors merge. And why I like to teach this idea of, you know, the color wheel and mixing your own secondaries when possible is because you can see within this flower that range. It's not all the same. Some of this leans more towards the red, more violety, and some of the edges you can see are more towards the blue. But when we take a small cube of this color and lay it over top, you can see where what this color requires way more red, way more alizarin crimson or rose madder, or it's also very transparent. If we were doing this in oils or acrylics, we could use the white here and add white and make a nice blend of those colors. In watercolor, of course, you have to use the paper color. Yeah, I'm gonna pause this here and demo that a little bit about because I also wanted to show very quickly these swatches, how to create a little nicer swatch, a little more even swatch in watercolor. You need to allow the light to pass through the pigment in order to have glowing watercolors. So let me just see what I'm going to stop share, switch to my overhead. I'm going to stop right here, I think, and I'm going to start with that one example of the flower. Let's see what we're going to do. The back side of this. How's the lighting on my camera? Is it okay? A little dull?
It's a little dull.
Just a little, yeah, just a little dull.
Okay, let's. That should be better, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, let's do this quickly. So I'm going to start with alizarin, French ultramarine. I don't know if you can see my palette. Can I ask everybody that is not, that to take their cameras off? Because we have so many people in the room, it'll make it easier for me to switch from camera to camera. And then if you want to chat in the chat box, please go ahead.
Cameras are off.
Oh, I see. Yeah, why I can't find my, thank you, everybody. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That makes it a little easier for me to follow. I'll pin this, so hopefully. Can you see both my palette and?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is my alizarin French ultramarine, quite a purple. Okay, and my alizarin crimson is over here. But you could use rose madder. This leans towards the purple quite a bit, and the French ultramarine does as well. So we're avoiding, the important thing is that we're avoiding any yellow, okay, to make that vibrant color. I'm going to use both these wells here. I should get rid of this too. I didn't clean my palette from last week. That's just the way I am, not a good habit, but. So we'll get something like that, okay? So you can't really see it until we put it on the paper, and I have to look back at that reference. So I would have to switch screens, I think. Let's see. Oh, I think I just have to do it for myself. Yeah, go back to this one of the flower. And it's definitely leans more towards the blue, right? But lots of the red in there as well. And when I'm mixing these, let me do a quick. Let's see. A quick drawing of the. Iris. Come back to that. I want to. Okay. So here's what we do. If you mix a big enough puddle with these and have areas that you can vary the color and let the watercolor do the business itself. And I noticed that it's more blue on the edges here. And then it gets darker and deeper in values as it comes to the center. So we have to increase the pigment concentration as well as the quantity of alizarin crimson to get that transition. Oh, that's a little bit too blue. So I can make the adjustment because we're working with wet. And just gonna do that. Oops. And then I'll come back with the blue again, because there's the edge of this. I'm gonna go really a little bit more concentrated. Oops, I shouldn't have touched them just yet, but never mind. And then get more concentrated as the depth of the flower. That's too red, so I'll just push some more blue into there. And then some of these inside of the flowers where they turned were quite white, quite light. So we'll use the water like that. And then all the way around like this and like this. And then we can just float some of our mixture. Like so. I don't have all the dark values yet. In watercolor, it's pretty hard to do that in one go, especially working so small. But what I would do is let it dry, and I'm going to switch back to share screen. I'm going to switch back to this photograph. And you can see a little better what I'm talking about here. There's a transition of light to dark that I didn't quite hit. But it was hard. I have to do it from memory because I can't look at this both things here. And since this is on my presentation. So another way of comparing, I'm going to go really dark here. Do you see in these spots here, really, really dark? And really dark there, like I'm gonna have to let that dry, that dry in my painting. But because of, well, maybe I can hair dry it a bit. Okay, let's stop sharing that and go back to my overhead. So in these little areas, we have to get more concentrated, which we talk about the value. So we're using less water and much more concentrated pigments. I think there were darker darks here and much darker darks in there, right? So we end up having a transition of values and making this much more three-dimensional. Okay, very, very quickly, super fast. But I think when you look at color like this, of an object that's flower, that's multiple colors that have so much subtlety in it, watercolor lends itself so well because it allows the colors to mix themselves. And as this is drying, and I pull it really closer to the camera so you can see what some of the separation of color, how beautiful that can be. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit with this idea of color mixing. I'm going to stay on this topic. Let me just double check that I'm not missing anything. Yeah. We're going to get to that in a second because that was the last part of our lessons to color match, and we're going to play a little bit of a game in a moment. Okay, but before we do that, I just go back to the color wheel. I just feel like this is so important, and I want to illustrate this idea. Exactly this, and exactly the color matching that I was doing. So It's going to record the camera with my voice, and I don't really want that, but you can see both. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you, start with a vibrant combination of French ultramarine and alizarin crimson to make a violet. Okay, so we're going to start with that same violet that we're using since it's on my palette. And I'm going to balance those two. Alizarin crimson, like I was saying, is much more staining than French ultramarine. French ultramarine is much more granular. Alizarin crimson is more staining and deeper value, but they're both what we call intrinsic dark values. You see how dark they are in my palette compared to the yellow side, lighter values. Look at the two reds, dark red, light red. It's important to have a combination of both because you're at certain points in your painting, you're going to need that. So this is what I was talking about, finding the balance. It's not necessarily 50-50. I want you to look really closely at that color, and I'm spreading it around so allow the light to get through so you can see that trail of color. Watch, I'm going to push this more towards the blue. You see the trail of blue? I push it more towards the red. Okay, so finding that balance between the two is a matter of practice. But this is a pretty vibrant color now. And what I'm going to do is lay that on the paper. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the complementary color of violet, which is yellow, and control and bring down the chroma of the color mix for you, or make a better tertiary. Okay. So here we go. Oh, I may as well do this as in a color swatch. If you're doing color swatches, start at the top, work on a slight angle in watercolor. Okay. One of the reasons that you're getting that run back or push back in that one example of the swatches is that you're probably working flat. You should work on an angle and work from one side to the other. Using this bead of paint is your best friend in watercolor. And we'll bring that down something like this. Okay, and that way, look, I'll do it one more time. You can get a nice even wash, and you get this bead of paint along here. If need be, you can just suck that up. Okay, back to my other camera. If I add a tiny bit, the smallest amount of yellow to this, let me clean my brush off. Just the tiniest bit of yellow. Watch what happens in this area here. Do you see the color mix getting more neutral? I'm going to put it beside that other wash. A little bit lighter in value. Let's. Can you see how it's more neutral? Less vibrant or less chroma. Now I'm going to bring that down, but I'm going to add more yellow as I go. I actually have to add more red and blue because yellow is such a light color that it's making everything. So there's my wash from the most vibrant, high chroma, a little bit of yellow, makes it a little more neutral. And as I add more yellow, it becomes more and more neutral. It still leans towards the violet side, right? But it's what we call neutral, more neutral. The chroma, the intensity of the pigment is less. So a lot of people, you remember from last week where I said, you know, we had in the one example, what were we doing? I think it was, I can't remember if I have my card here or not. Adding tinting, toning, or shading, and tint and tone, tinting and shading, shading adding black, tinting adding white, and toning by adding a gray. My preferred way, and really work with grays, but we can make something more gray by adding the two. Let's say you're working with vibrant red. Okay, what would the complementary color to vibrant red be? The color opposite, this is leaning towards the orange, right? So across the color wheel towards the blue-green would be the opposite. So if we want to make red more neutral, what do we add to it? See that? We're going to add the blue, and I'll do that here for the camera here. You see how the red becomes more neutral? Green, a little bit more. There we go, because the opposite of red is green. So I've taken my cerulean blue and a little yellow, lemon yellow, and together those mix a neutral red, okay, or tertiary red, toned down. We bring the chroma down as we go across the color wheel, okay. Easier to see here maybe. So we go across the color wheel, leaning towards the orange. So if this was a crimson, perfect crimson, it would be green, but this is actually leaning a little bit more towards the orange side. So we're coming across here. The opposite of violet is yellow. The opposite of orange is cyan, right? So it's really important to know that color wheel so you can get quickly to the colors that are needed. I can't emphasize enough how that needs to be practiced. Generally speaking, I think one of the issues with today's artists is they do not practice enough. They want to make nice paintings. And really, this is a very analytical study of color, I know, but it's required, I feel, to understand your color palette, to learn your color palette so that when you're painting, you can be more free and more intuitive. These things I don't think about anymore. They just happen. It allows me to paint more quickly, fresher, and at the end of the day, my painting likes me better. Okay, so let's switch screens again. So we're going to do this little color matching exercise. These cyan, magenta, and processed yellow. Green is a combination. This high chroma green is a combination of 100% cyan and 100% yellow. Okay. This violet is a combination of 100% cyan and 100% magenta. And the orange, 100% magenta and 100% yellow. And no black. So we're going to play this little game. If I can find it. Not that game. this game. And I want Betty to give me 2 volunteers.
Okay, we need 2 volunteers.
2 volunteers to unmute yourself and put yourself out there. Anybody? Come on, you shy bunch. Because I said to turn your cams off. Now you're mad at me.
I will.
Okay, who's that?
Tracy.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
I don't know what I'm doing yet though, so.
I'm going to tell you, and then
Okay.
everybody will want to play this game. So you're going, because you're the first volunteer, you're going to win a Nimbus watercolor brush from Phoenix Art, regardless of how you do.
Oh, great,
Woohoo.
thanks.
All right, so here we go. On this side where my cursor is, you can see this color mixture of purple is made up of 29% cyan, 65% magenta, and 8% yellow.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to do it first. And I'm going to explain how I think about color matching in some weird way, but it's how it's done. And you watch and you do the next one. Okay, it's not easy because we need to nail this exactly. This is our target. We know that it's mostly cyan, right? But it leans a little bit towards the purple, and the chroma's fairly low. Oh, yeah, so the new target. And this tells you the old one. Hold on. New target. Let's start here. Okay, new target, no numbers. That's what we want.
I thought you were cheating.
Yeah. I thought I was too. So now, different story. It leans towards the magenta, right? So I know that it has mostly magenta. I know it's a dark hue, so there's lots of rich color. So the numbers are going to be high. And I noticed that it's a little bit neutral. So I think there's going to be a little bit of yellow, but mostly I know that it's going to be magenta. So I'm going to crank the yellow up, and your job is to say up, 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 and I will follow your voice. And I feel like this is a little bit too blue or too. So let's see what happens if we turn the cyan down. If the intensity becomes up, let's turn the cyan up. It becomes more purple. So let's leave it there and see what happens with the yellow. We move the yellow up. Watch the color.
Okay.
Well, it's getting too orange, right? So the combination of these is too much. We need much more cyan. And I think we need much more, magenta and more cyan. Still more magenta. More cyan because it's a bit too red. More purple, more cyan, more. Well, we're getting close. How do you think about it? It's a bit dark, right? Let's bump. So the target has more chroma than the mixture. So I need to take away some yellow and let some chroma. Yeah, getting closer.
Okay.
Getting closer. Oh, too much. I feel like it's 49 for this is too blue to me. So I'm going to take away a little bit of cyan. Getting closer. Getting closer. Right? Now I'm not going to, you can keep tweaking this until you get it right. We're going to get close and then we're going to compare. 49, 96, 51. So I need to bring this down to 96. And this was
49.
49, so it's pretty close. I would have got there a little, right? And then this was 51, so a little bit too. There we go, close enough. Right? And we have a match. Are you ready?
Sure.
Somebody else can do the Jeopardy soundtrack for me. Put a little pressure on. Are you ready? I'm going to time you. No, I'm not. It's too much pressure. Okay, new target.
Oh,
What do you see?
so take the magenta way down.
Yeah, let's just go way down to what? Let's start with 10% maybe.
Okay. Okay, stop.
Okay,
And then
look how
add a
close.
little more cyan.
More cyan.
Stop.
Yeah. Now what?
A little more yellow.
Yeah.
Oh, too much yellow.
Right. Good for you. Yeah. Tell me when. I'm going down a little bit.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
See how much more? A little more neutral on the left, right?
Yeah.
So let's add some magenta.
Oh, okay.
Let's add a little bit of magenta. Let's leave it at 20. What do you think now? Where do we need to go?
It's too dark. It's got too much color.
Okay.
So take some cyan out.
Oh, too yellow. So let's take some yellow out, right? Oh, too neutral. It's a bit too gray, right?
It's too gray.
Let's put that at 50. Let's put this at 50 so we know where we stand. 50, 50, and let's remove some magenta. What do you think? What does it need more of?
It needs more color, so more cyan and more yellow.
Okay, so let's go up to 53.
Sure.
53 on both. No, it's a little yellow though, isn't it?
I think it needs more cyan.
Okay.
No, more cyan.
Oh,
Oh,
so
that's-
sorry. Yeah, beg your pardon.
You better stop.
Getting close. So we have a look. It's not exactly, but it's pretty
No,
close.
yeah.
Not exactly, but for the sake of our class, moving along. 56, 59, 19, 18, 51, 53. Very well done.
Yeah.
Okay, this is great to train your eye. You can find this on dicknelson.com. DICKNELSON color.com, dicknelsoncolor.com. He is that my teacher. So he has this. Let's do one more person. Anybody?
I'll go.
Okay, who's that?
Terry.
Terry?
Yep,
Okay. What do I need?
this is the target. You need some magenta.
Okay, what color is the base color?
The base color, I think it's probably cyan. Is it
I would say it's an orange.
an orange? So magenta and the yellow, right?
Let's start with, let's put those up. We got to get rid of some cyan.
Yeah, it's too green.
Okay, right? Okay, tell me which way to go.
Okay, which way to go? More magenta.
More magenta?
Yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, stop. More yellow. Whoa, stop. Okay, now maybe just a touch of cyan. It's getting closer. Okay,
It's dark though, isn't it?
it's dark, so we need more yellow.
No, we need to take down some of the mixtures.
Okay, so we need
So
to
let's-
take down some
Let's take a
magenta.
little magenta down
Okay, and now
and
it's
take a
too
little
green.
yellow, and let's take a little yellow down too.
Okay,
A little too green, so we're gonna take
Yeah.
the magenta down. We need to pop these back up a little bit more.
yeah.
Okay, what do I need?
Close.
What do I need?
Let's see, what do we need to do? Yellow, let's try some more yellow.
Yep,
Okay, getting
Close.
closer, closer. Oh, okay, that's
a little
good.
bit too, maybe too much.
A little bit too yellow, so I guess maybe we need a little bit more of the red in there,
Magenta,
just a touch.
yeah, it's getting close.
Yeah, oh, right there.
Okay,
That's pretty good.
let's put it at 53,
Okay,
and then let's move this. It's a little more neutral, so let's just round that up to 36, because I know they're all on. You see it's slightly off?
yeah, it is.
So is that, we need more blue? I'm confused. Do we need more blue? No,
Well,
yes.
you tell me. Now. we have
I'm
to look
telling
at-
you.
Okay,
Okay. Stop right there.
yeah, 37.
Still not, it's still not there though.
Okay, let's go to,
Oh, there. Stop.
okay, should we check it?
Yes.
37, 54, 75. Ding, ding,
Woo!
ding, 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 ding. Very good. That's
Great.
amazing. All right. Okay, fun, right? I will send
Yeah.
you guys the link to that. Let's continue on. Let me, how are we? We're almost 1 hour in. Let's go to this. Okay. So we're going to look at 3 different things. One of the things we've already looked at is this idea of contrast. Okay, and contrast is relative, as is color. On the top example, can you see the color chip here and the color chip here, which appears to be lighter?
I can't, I can only see one screen.
Oh, hold on. Thank you. Is that Betty?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's because I'm not sharing my screen.
Good.
Okay. On the gray on the left, the gray on the right, which is darker. Everyone can unmute their mics and shout out if you want, or put it in the chat line. Obviously, this looks.
It appears darker.
It appears darker.
The
but
one
then
on the
it's-
left appears darker,
Yes.
and down below, which one appears lighter?
The one on the
That one
right
on the
appears
right.
lighter.
Okay, if we compare it to this over here,
Yeah.
I'm moving it. I want to move it away, but let's move it here. I want you to tell me if we start with this being 1,
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This dark space around here is clearly a 7.
Right.
What number is this?
1.
2.
2,
What number is this?
It's 2.
2.
Correct. Do you see how different they look? Value is influenced by the color that it's surrounded in, just like color, and we're going to get to that in a moment. What about this? From a distance, what value is this?
3.
3.
And this
4.
one?
4.
3.
Three.
This one's 3 and this one's 4, or they're
No,
both
that
3?
one's 3.
5.
They're both 3.
They're both 3.
Both 4 or 3.
There's
Oh,
4.
they're
4.
four. Yeah, 4.
Deceiving, yes.
Yes.
This is one of the challenges of painting. For sure, it's one of the challenges of painting, is to be able to determine the correct value. The value changes depending the appearance of the value. The value doesn't change, but the appearance of the value changes depending on what it's surrounded by. So this gets us to this idea of contrast. In our color wheel here, we know the complementary color or the contrasting color of orange is blue, right? We know the contrasting, let's go to this one. Let's go to our color wheels that we made here. The contrasting color of cyan, of red, of magenta is green, right? It's the opposite. Okay, what is the opposite of high chroma? High chroma is on the outside here. What's
Gray.
on the inside?
Gray.
Low chroma or neutral or tertiaries, right? So the opposite of high chroma is low chroma or intensity neutral, another way of thinking it, right? The opposite of light is dark. Okay, when we combine this, if we put, and I want you to look at the focus on the top row of colors, and this is a student's work. If we put 2 colors beside each other in the color wheel, we call that analogous color. That's spelled wrong. Analogous color. Colors that are close together in the color wheel. Close together in the color wheel. Which means the contrast is minimal. Correct? We also, this is a bit dark. This purple here would have been better to be here because when we make this top row, we want to make our values as close to the same as we can. The one where there's a darker value around, the red pops out a bit more, but it shouldn't. If it was closer to this purple, it would pop less. Okay, there's less contrast, less visual tension between these when we use colors that are close together in value, in chroma, and in hue. Value, chroma, hue. Okay, when we use the complementary hue, color, we're creating more tension. The opposite of red is green. The opposite of violet is yellow. The opposite of orange is blue. These should also be the same value when you do your little studies or tests. Look at the difference of how red pops off the page compared to the analogous version. The complementary version, we're creating visual tension between the 2 colors. We're creating visual tension between yellow and violet. They're the most different they can be, correct? When we surround or put beside 2 colors that are complementary beside one another, we create a tension between those 2 colors. Green is saying, look at me, and red is saying, look at me. Yellow is saying, screaming, look at me, and violet is screaming, look at me, right? So we create tension. When we put colors close together in the color wheel, they become more harmonious. Look at the yellow and orange example. there's less of a gap, there's less of a jump, there's less of a line between the two colors, less contrast, more harmonious, more tension, less tension. But if we want to boost, maximize the tension between colors to create a visual point of interest or a dynamic color, I want everybody to look at this color here. Not only do I want to surround it by its complementary hue, I want to surround it by its complementary chroma. The opposite of intense is neutral. The opposite of light is dark. And the opposite of red is green. Simultaneously, we have multiple types of contrast, creating what we call simultaneous contrast. Okay, very important in paintings of Monet, Matisse, Joseph Albers worked with all these ideas of relational colors. And we see this in nature. The opposite of green is red. Here we have two intense colors. The red jumps off the page. One of the reasons we do, that we haven't discussed, but we will in color composition, is this volume of color or quantity of color. The quantity of green, neutral green compared to vibrant red. You might want to write this down, but we will say it again in probably week 4. Our eye is always attracted to that which is unique. What's the unique color here? Red. Okay. My hero, one of my favorite stuff, Joseph Albers. I can't remember his year of birth. Yes, I can, because it's on this slide. 1888 to 1976. Before the war, he moved to New York, as I was mentioned, and taught at Yale and Blackburn College. So I think he was the dean of art at Blackburn College, if I'm not mistaken, but who knows with my memory these days. Anyway, Joseph Albers worked with this idea mostly as a teacher. He painted as a teacher. He was analytical and looked at color analytically and played with the difference between optic illusion, and ideas of how we see, the science of how we see color. And so he worked with this whole idea his whole life. A good percentage, sorry, of his work was this series of paintings, which he's most well known for, of the interaction of color called Homage to the Square. So he did this series called Homage to the Square. I only put one example of it here, but I want you to look at this color because we're going to get to this in a moment. And this relationship of this orange to this yellow and this deeper orange, more neutral orange. And do you see what we looked at in this slide here? What did I call it? A halation. These colors are influencing one another. This color here of the outside ring of yellow is painted the same color. But the optic illusion pushes this brighter here and darker here. And in the middle band here, this color is transposed over here, and this color is transposed over there. We'll get to that in a minute. One of the amazing things with what we call halation. That's Mr. Joseph Albers himself. Take a bow, sir. And he worked with these ideas of homage to the square, and something that we were just looking at with black and white. But here we've got, believe it or not, the same color of brown here and here. In the analogous combination, the brown seems very muted. In the blue surround, it pushes very much towards the orange. They are indeed the same color. This is something in the studio, which I did the last time in the studio. We did a Zoom class, and I have all these color cards here, and not everybody has the same calibration of screen, my camera, lighting. It all contributes to that. So I've decided to do it like this instead. And I think it works a little bit better. The complementary color of blue is what?
Orange.
Thank you. The complementary color of orange is what? Blue. Thank you. Notice this leaning towards the blue and this being perceived as an orange. Let's look at the actual color. Same, same. Complementary color is cast in the negative space on the gray. One of the reasons for this being neutral, a neutral gray, is a even mixture, or is related to the orange, because gray has both yellow and red in it. So it can conduct this complementary illusion. Let's look at this combination. Which one of these two colors down below matches these? Or are they the same? They look the same, don't they? But watch.
Oh, wow.
Amazing, right?
Yep.
Truly, so you can make two different colors look the same depending on the color that you surround it. Let's try another one. First of all, they appear the same there, don't they? It's indistinguishable. If I take this off, those look like the same color, especially because the examples, and if I remove this letters that I hinted, next time I'll do that. I won't give it away, but look at the difference.
Wow.
Shocking, right? Next example. Now tell me, are these the same or not? Now that I've messed with your heads a little bit.
I don't think they are.
All right, so we take a poll.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
They
No,
don't appear the same.
I don't think so either.
Let's find out. Would you say that's a good match?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's a good match?
Yep. They're the same.
The same.
They are the same. Hey, look what's happening here. If I start off with this blue and this green and add a little bit of green, a little bit more green, a little bit more green, a little bit more,
Blue.
more, it becomes the blue. But look what's happening on the edges of this colors. This
Wow.
color here is, as Dick Nelson would put it, the child of these two colors. This color appears over here, and this color appears over here.
Wow.
I didn't have time, and I decided not to do it because it's too much in a class, and I do want to do a little painting demo for you guys today. So I didn't put other like crazy visual, what do you call it, optical illusions in here, because I really wanted you to focus on this, and we'll talk about other concepts another time, maybe for another workshop. But if we got too much at you, you're going to go to bed with a headache. Okay, are they the same or not?
No,
These ones
no.
definitely have to be different, right? What do you think?
Different.
Is there anybody that thinks they're the same?
Yes.
One person. Have you learned nothing from this class?
Well, on my screen, they don't look,
Look,
yeah, I know, but it's not.
No.
they are
Yeah.
different. Look,
Yeah.
that one there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's close. It's so hard to tell, but I say it's that.
Close.
That's so close. One more.
Wow.
Same gray color. Look how it changes.
Looks so much warmer.
Okay, but tell me then, on a scale of 0 to 6, the gray that you see in the left-hand side, the one surrounded with purple, what would you say the value is?
3.
3.
3? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll say
Two
that.
for me.
2,
I think
okay.
2.
And what about, this is the perceived. First of all, we'll do the perceived, then we'll do the actual. And what about in the green?
3.
That looks 3.
That's a little darker, right?
Yeah,
But everyone knows by now that these are the same color.
right.
Because look in the middle. Oops. Oops, sorry, I grabbed the wrong thing. Silly me.
Yeah,
Right?
they're 3.
3.
3, 3.
Yeah.
Let's put that back where it belongs. I should have attached these so they move together. Wow, right? I don't know about you guys, I'm exhausted. Mark Rothko. When I was saying Mark Rothko was one of the students of Joseph Albers. And he is pretty strong-minded, had quite a fiery temper himself. Not everybody, not all of the Joseph Albers students liked him.
Are you a thirsty boy?
Yeah, I am. I
A
think I'll
thirsty
have,
boy?
yes, I am thirsty.
Whoever is talking to their dog needs to mute.
It doesn't have there.
I thought it was her husband. Okay, so Mark Rothko, one of my favorite artists. People just don't really understand it. I don't know how many of you have stood in front of a Mark Rothko painting. Not on the screen, but in front of a Mark Rothko painting. First of all, they're massive in scale.
Yeah.
Second of all, he was clearly a student of Joseph Albers. He did not, as a matter of fact, he quit. I think it was Yale, but it might have been Blackburn College. I can't remember, but he quit. He couldn't handle it. And he had his own ideas, but at the end of the day, his ideas were very similar. One of the things that that we will talk about in the future classes, and maybe a little bit here, but I don't know how deep I want to get into this, and maybe next week and the week after, this idea of push and pull colors, like color space. which I think I've got on our docket more for next week, but color space, which is a huge thing. And this idea of Mark Rothko of what we call, he didn't like to put himself into any category of painters, but typically he's put in as an abstract expressionist. There's two distinct roads of abstract expressionism. One, like Jackson Pollock, was action painters, and another called color field painters. Look it up if you're interested. I don't think I want to make this a history lesson because I do that in a modern art class that I teach. But Mark Rothko was what we call a color field abstract expressionist. In other words, he was working with his painting and color. There wasn't a subject, there wasn't an object necessarily. There was just the power of color. And I know that Violet went to a gallery of his in Houston, which is amazing, and his work at the Institute of Art in Chicago, incredible. In Europe, I've just been blown away. But you stand before these pieces and they either suck you in or push you away. And part of how he's done that is a combination of color. And a lot of what he's doing is this relationship of colors and the use of his soft edges. When you compare Mark Rothko's paintings or color transitions to Homage to the Square, for example, where Joseph Albers is using, Joseph Albers is using these really hard edges and defined spaces. Mark Rothko is using soft edges, softer transition. Your eye can move more easily through these areas. And this is a lot more like artists, even though it's in such a bigger scale and bigger swaths of color, more leans towards the idea of what Claude Monet was working with and using like neutral grounds to conduct two colors, like a halation. So I want to show you another couple of paintings. These are massive in scale, and I don't want to get too far into it, but if you're interested, read more about Mark Rothko, his use of color as a color field painter. There are many more. But let's move on. Claude Monet, everyone knows him as one of the premier colorists, who we would call, and way ahead of his time in terms of application of color. I know you've probably heard before this idea of putting two primary colors together and letting your eye mix them together. And I remember going into the Musée d'Orsay in France and following around in the Impressionist section of the d'Orsay and listening to the guide go on about this idea of eye mixing two colors of paint. And yes, it does that. And yes, absolutely is part of the idea of the, your color mixing idea, two colors together. Like if you put a red dot, lots of red dots and lots of blue dots together, you'll get a violet. Your eye will mix them together. It's true. And that's because light's bouncing off those colors, right? But bouncing off those objects and bouncing back to your eye, like we talked about last week, remember? When we looked at that thing about conducting different colors, RGB, and we're seeing those additive color primaries being reflected back to our eye off of objects. So when you put a red and a blue together, your eye will mix the two colors It's not your eye that's mixing the two colors. It's the light that's bouncing between you and your eye and the object that is blending those colors together, right? If you think of it that way. But that's not what makes his work magic. And I just wanted to go up to the guy and grab him by the neck and take over his class. But I didn't. And I'm really proud of myself for not even saying anything, because it's not his job to do that. He just tells what he's told. But in truth, if you look closely at a Monet, many people say, oh my God, the color's moving. If I move my head this way, the color moves there. If I move my head this way, the color moves there. If anybody's stood in front of a Rothko, you've noticed this color movement on the canvas, like it literally feels like it's moving around space. Same as in Claude Monet's painting, except that we have a representational image, and what's conducting that movement of light is these little areas of halation, of knocking back these little color beside color, but the ground that conducts that, if you think of it like electricity, it's the wire that conducts the electricity through 2 points. And here it's the use of neutrals and grays or tertiary colors that make the Claude Monet's paintings amazing. It's not the use of the vibrance as people think. If we compare this painting and you were to analyze this painting, you will notice that the majority of this painting is done with tertiaries, not two primaries put side by side. Okay, let's move on. How are you for time? So I did this fun little thing because we're going to get to this again and this idea again, but I want to look at this idea of your eye is attracted to that which is unique, and this idea of proportion of color affects the color. The red looks more red because it's surrounded by neutral green, right? We learned that in this class. Also, look at the red that is high chroma versus low chroma. High chroma warms appear closer in space. Neutral colors appear farther back in space. There's more ambient light between this poppy and this poppy, adding more of the other colors in the color spectrum, making it more neutral. Does that make sense? The other thing that
Yes.
Monet uses so brilliantly is this use of unique color to conduct the eye, like the wire conducts electricity, or like neutral conducts color, to move the eye from the couple in the back, the mother and child in the back, to the mother and child in the foreground. The colors of these guys are more vibrant than the colors of those guys, more chroma, closer. Also, there are other things like scale, edge, that make these guys appear closer. But I want to show you the magic of the red. Is it the same painting? If we take away that red, it's still a pretty good painting, but it ain't that. Look at the proportions of color that's used here. The focal point, that vibrant yellow hat, our eye is attracted to that which is unique. This red brings your eye through, just doesn't have the same impact when we do that. Now this hat is less unique. The color spacing and intensity of the yellow is not the same as this. The proportions are not the same. And that painting appears more flat. What if we use a blue violet? It's just not the same, is it? So, who's ever heard of blue violet poppies? Not me. Another of my favorite artists, Henri Matisse, with this painting of his wife. I believe it was, at the time, it was laughed at and he was branded fauve. Well, he started a movement of fauve artists, which translates to the wild beasts of color. So he's one of the first artists to use these jarring big swaths of color. If Monet used small little brushstrokes of color beside neutral and neutral, one beside the other, knitting color together, then Henri Matisse, amongst others, of what we call the fauve movement, or which was labeled in the exhibition where I believe art critic called the wild beast, and it stuck, and so started the fauve movement. This big difference between what was going on in the past and what Matisse started doing with these fauve artists, using big areas of color. I don't want to make this art history class, but I want you to pay attention to that artist. And everybody knows this artist, of course, right? And I want you to look at the same thing. First of all, there's this obvious thickness of paint, but there's this obvious complementary business going on of orange, blue, famous in Van Gogh's paintings. This amazing use of brushstrokes, but look at the color. In these areas, the color is not all one flat. The colors are close together in the color wheel, and they create movement and pathways with his brushstrokes. But look how the orange jumps off the page, and look at the way it leads you through the painting, because your eyes are attracted to that which is unique. In this case, the orange is unique, it attracts your eye. The blue is like the wire that conducts the electricity. Okay, I just love his work. Obviously, if you've seen those live, you can't be uninspired by the work of Van Gogh. Just incredibly powerful painting, and also, I think, underrated as a colorist. Okay, so simultaneous contrast. This is going to be a project. I was hoping that we would get to this. I've skipped over some demonstration stuff, but maybe I can, I'm going to leave it to you guys. Let me think here for a second. I need a break anyway. Any questions? Let's open up the mics to questions or comments, because I just do need a little bit of a break. Compose myself. Just type them in or unmute yourself. If not, then I have a proposal for you. We can either look at painting this Winnie the Pooh, my favorite Disney character, because he's a bear of very little brain and big words, they confuse him, a lot like me. And I identify with Pooh. And also it reminds me of my my dog Charlie, who we lost recently, who when he was a puppy chewed the ear off one of my daughter's teddies. Anyway, this ended up coming to the studio, and we've painted and drawn him many times, and I love it. But in this case, I want you to look at these two ideas. In the example on the left, I've surrounded Winnie the Pooh with a green background, bringing up the contrast between red, green. Really, I think the lighting is slightly different, but the theory would be in this case is that his red sweater would stand out and his lips jump off the page more than in the example on the right, where we're emphasizing the color yellow. These aren't photographed. You can see the shadows are a little different, exactly the same way, which would explain the difference. But the theory, which we've been doing, is of course the complementary color of yellow is violet and the complementary color of red is green. There isn't a right or wrong. It depends on what I'm thinking. If I want to make Winnie the Pooh's color more vibrant and stand out as being yellow and make that unique, I can easily give the background a muted, dark, muted, neutral violet color as a background, really emphasizing the yellow. And in the green background, it's going to emphasize the red. So it can be done either way. I've painted it in the violet many, many times. Well, not many times, twice. But I've drawn it many times in our drawing class. It's a favorite props of the Disney characters that I put up. But I'm going to today, if you want, I will demonstrate a 20-minute painting of Winnie the Pooh in green using simultaneous contrast and some of the concepts. Or we can play around with these ideas more of color and halation, if you like. I will show you this one example, and hopefully, and then you can see the challenge of this, why I put it on the computer. The colors appear quite different, this one compared to this one. And here's the challenge of the lighting in the studio, that it's not as dramatic. In the studio, they look wildly different. On the computer screen, they're much more similar. Although, can you see how that appears darker and more neutral, and this looks more vibrant and popping off the page? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we can play around with more ideas like that in the last 20 minutes, a demonstration, or, and I think I want to show you this and see if it works today. It may not, in which case you guys all get an invitation to the studio to see this live. I want you to focus your eyes between those two colors. That. A lot of fumbling of paper going on here. I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay. Concentrate on the center, the space between those two. Oh yeah, you can see it even on the computer screen there. I'll leave them like that. Can you see here is more green and here's more blue? The reason this works is because this color is a mixture of those two. They're all related. So this has to conduct the color for both of those. If you do it with a different color, it won't work. Nothing. Okay, I can use this color. Red, blue. Yeah, that works a little. I don't know if you can see it. It's not as dramatic, much more yellow here. That one's not as much. Yeah, there, look. Much like a trail of light. Do you see it?
Yeah.
All right. So we can do more of that, or I can do a demonstration.
Demo.
I did the drawing ahead of time, thinking you guys would say that. Had enough of looking at color chips. So here's what I'm going to say to you. Anybody who this class is going on too long, needs a break, wants to go off, I'm still going to send you out the recording. You're not hurting my feelings. I understand it's quite a long class, 2 hours in front of the computer listening. So feel free to just knock off. And I'm going to do a quick demo and using this idea of the color wheel. I'm reluctant to highlight my palette because I'm talking, it tends to go to record the voice camera, which is a bit of a problem. Next time I have a better idea, I won't attach it to my main computer. See if that works. But here we go. So my plan is then I'm going to do this, show you. That's my little guy. You see him?
Yep.
So that's what I'm painting. I prefer to paint from light. Right now, I have my white light above. I'll even show you that. You see how bright it is? So I created a flange to go over and block some of the light. So look at the color of that now. It's changed dramatically. And I'm going to switch and I'm going to aim a warm light towards Winnie the Pooh instead of this cool light. And I'll show you again. How that changes so dramatically. So the warm light brings up the warmth. The absence of warm light is going to create a cooler, more neutral shadow. And I don't know if I can prop this up. It won't be the same angle, so I think I'll just keep it at my palette. And somewhere I've got a photograph. It's not the same angle or anything, but I will leave that here as well. See him. Okay, so let's get going. Even less time now. It's important to have clean color, clean water. And normally I paint with this palette, which I like a little bit better. But for the color theory idea, I'm going to go and stick with this as the same colors, exactly the same colors that we were using last week. So no different at all. And I'm going to use your primaries. The yellow is a very warm yellow now. And the shadow side lacks the chroma or intensity. So I can add the complementary opposite to make this a darker value, but also a more neutral color on the shaded side of the face. The same thing with the red. And at the same time, I want to create this connection between the character and the background. I don't want to separate. So I'm going to let some of the color from the yellow and the red, especially the red, seep into the background, because the background wants to be green, but it wants to be neutral green, right? And neutral green means that that it's green with lots of red in it, right? Opposite of red. So that's why opposite of green is red. So I'm going to put, I'm not going to worry about having red in the background. And what it will do is we'll create a connection or a link between the background and the center of interest. Okay. On the box, the same. The light is warm. So let's go up there. I don't know if you can see the white box. We're going to get a little bit more into this next week with oils or acrylic painters. So don't despair if you're not a watercolor painter. So you see on this side of the box, it's a warm light. Okay, absence of the warm yellow light is more of a blue shadow. Okay, more neutral. And is it always a blue shadow? People make that mistake. No, look at the shadows of the Winnie the Pooh. It's not a blue shadow, it's a more neutral shadow. The local color is a warm yellow. Look at the reds. Those aren't blue, they're just more neutral. They're cooler because they're lacking the warm light, but they're not blue, okay? If we're painting for accuracy, if we're painting representationally for accuracy, you don't have to do it this way. If you're painting for other reasons, you can put whatever color suits your fancy that goes along with your style, whatever your ideas of art, but you should know the ideas behind it before we just. So clearly I'm going to paint this yellow as fairly high chroma. So I want that very high chroma. I'm going to start with that. I'm not too worried about the background because the background is going to get dark. So I'm going to mix a really high chroma. I'm going to use my CAD yellow and a little bit of my Aurelian. No, that's not Aurelian. So it's this. And I want to mix like big swimming pools of color. I don't want to have to be mixing my color over and over and over as a watercolor painter. I want to adjust my color, but I don't want to be mixing it each time. A big pool of color will make it way easier to attack this. I'm not worried about the dark side. I can make the shadow side later. I want to put the color in and look in areas like under the brow, the edges that tilt towards the red are being influenced by reflected red light. So around the jaw, this plane of the ridge of the brow, and a little bit on the mouth and nose, and a little bit around some of the edges where we look at that soft edge color. We'll talk more about next week. I don't have to make a hard line there. I can let some color of red be reflected into the yellow, making a more orangey yellow, right? So some areas of Winnie the Pooh are more vibrant in yellow, and others are lean towards the red, and others lean towards the much more neutral. What I want, though, with this is to start off with really high chroma, and in the light side, the lightest parts here and this edge here are the lightest parts of the face here. So I can add more water and let more white paper show through. But the darker areas, the transition areas, I can make the pigment more dense. In other words, add more pigment, add more red to it, because they're becoming an orange, and orange is less chroma than red, right? And so I'm getting to my neutrals that way. But also it's related to the rest of the colors here, which is really important. I don't see any highlights in that nose, but it's pretty black, but I'm going to leave a little bit of light in there, maybe come back. I'm just adding some cadmium red to this around the mouth, warm it up here, warm it up around the chin, because that color is being reflected by his shirt. This area is quite neutral. I might just show you this rather. No, I can't. I don't think that. Add camera angles. That's better. See that guy. Okay, the complementary color to yellow orange is what? Blue. So I'm going to use cerulean blue because it leans more towards the green. And it's more opaque. It's also a pigment that has more granulation and will create some interesting effects of granulated color. A little bit of a background there. I don't want that. And I want that to be much more orange and this to be much more orange up here. Just let the colors flow. I think it's better in watercolor. And then the shirt, as you can see, is quite a warm. Where the best? Yeah, maybe this is the best place to put it. The shirt, even though the light's in the opposite direction, the shirt is quite a warm yellow, but in the shadows, it's pretty cool. It leans towards the alizarin crimson. So I'm going to start off with the high chroma over here of the more orange red. And I just wanted a bit deeper color, so I'll add a touch of alizarin crimson to it to get the right hue. That's better. And I'm just letting this run right now. Let it go. The red sweater is a darker value, so I can come back into that. I'm really focused on what we call the local color, which is the part, not the highlights, but the color of red that is in the light side of the sweater. I know on the dark side, it's more neutral. It's got more blue in it because the absence of warm light. So that means that this side in the shadow, I can push it more towards the alizarin crimson, which sits on the blue side of the spectrum, and just let it go where it wants to go. And here I know that this background is going to be green, but it's going to be a neutral green. So I kind of want to introduce some of that color now, right away. Don't like what's happening here. It's that little break that I took. Yeah, those little back runs. So I'm going to come back to this, which is yellow here again. I'll just let that color sit for a minute so I don't lose that edge completely. While I'm doing that, I'm going to paint the local color, the same color that I was using in here, into this. I wish I had cobalt blue, actually, is what I really want. Cobalt blue mixed with cerulean blue, and it's a bit muddy. So here, same thing, the local color is the highlight, the lit color, not the highlight, but the light side of the honey jar, which is blue. And the shadow of that, of course, is more violet. So, so we can get red in there, but I'm not quite ready for that yet either. Let's get the yellow, back to yellow. And I'm just gonna paint these separately for now. Suck up some moisture here. And then to maintain that kind of line there, then I'll link them together, link them together like that. So that keeps a little bit of separation. Same here below, underneath, that's a little bit more dry. So I can just keep those a little bit separate. This side is much warmer. This side is influenced by the red. So I'll push that to the red, and I'm going to link those two, connect those two colors like that with just a wet brush so that the line stays, but it's not a hard line necessarily. Same with this, like that. And this guy here. And this guy here. Just link all those up together. Connect that with some more neutral, connect this with some more neutral. There's a little influence on the white box of red. not sitting on a box here. But and I want that influence, like I want that bounced reflected light. So here we already said that this shape here, that shadows are cool. So I can just extend that while it's on my brush, while it's in my palette, while I'm using the same color. I can just, oops, draw that down. I don't like what's going on here. Let's just re-wet that. It's a little not really linked up or connected well enough. Oh, I don't really like this white line there, to be honest with you. The reason I don't is because it attracts the eye too much. So there's a good first wash. This is going to get green. Look at my design here. I wish I put way more color in there. It got too watery. Here is way better. The chroma got too watered down. That's because I went back in. And also maybe because I was a little bit tight to begin with, you know, a little bit. So it's still a bit damp. So I don't think it's good to adjust now. Hair dry it a bit. Give you guys a chance to top your wine glasses up. That's not very successful. So while the rest is drying, I'm just gonna adjust this because I really don't like that the center of interest isn't vibrant enough, isn't high enough chroma. So I'm going to, I diluted it too much. That's the problem. So I'm just gonna go back with a darker, higher chroma, less watery wash and adjust that a little bit. It should have been honestly done in my first wash. It's better if it's done in your first wash, but it's okay. These things happen, and to be able to recognize them and adjust them it's important. And I'm going to paint it like his ear is still there. So now I'll just connect these. Way better. Way better. Now I can dry the whole thing off. How are we for time?
9 o'clock,
Okay.
9:03.
Like I say, just knock off if you want. I'm not going to paint for too long, but this demonstration will come together pretty quickly with my next wash. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm not going to mix my greens. I'm just going to use sap green from my other palette, Daniel Smith sap green, just save time because I'd only want to be 10 more minutes here. I'm making a big puddle of green, but I'm going to use some of my yellow so that the colors are connected in some way. They're not. And I know that this background is going to get way darker. So sap green's not dark enough. So I can use the French ultramarine. Add French ultramarine. I'm not mixing it all together, over mixing it. I'm just getting the chroma a little, or the value a little darker. There, that's better. We want that to be neutral. And we want it connected to the yellow of the teddy bear. There's yellow light hitting the Winnie the Pooh and being reflected into the background as well as back to our eye, right? So it's reflected in all the directions. So it's important. I dislike with a passion when portraits or objects are not linked or not related to their subject. It's as if they're painted with a different light source, and that just can't happen. That's not a good thing in my opinion. You can see the transparency with the red underneath, how that's showing through. I do want to connect a little bit of this edge and make it a bit softer there. To me, it's a bit strong. While this is wet, I want to go now and get the shadow side of this and let it run into the background. So it's an orange, right? It's still the local color, which is the yellow with a little bit more red in it and a touch of blue. Blue-green really, because the background's green. And if the yellow is influencing the green background, then the green background has to be influencing the teddy bear, right? So it's still wet, so that edge just gets lost a little bit there. That's fine. A little more vibrant as it comes here. I want to squint my eyes and really try and nail that value of this, that dark side, like really make sure that I get it dark enough. Next week, I'm going to show you a trick to how to measure that and double check that, a little value checker. And then as it gets down to the bottom, the chroma is a little higher underneath the chin, I notice. So just soften some of those edges because the transition isn't hard, it's a soft edge. So I'm just touching it with a little bit of water. Just connecting those shapes up. Yeah. Oops. I want to keep that mouth clear. That's got to be vibrant red. Should paint around that. I've added a little black to my green, but not just by itself, tons of blue as well. So it's just not, just to get that darker there. A little bit darker there. And then this transition here. Soft edge here. Soft edge there, soft edge there. Soft edge there. There. And now we're back into that, into the red. Actually, no, while I'm on here, I just want to get that value darker. This is very much influenced by the background. And while I'm on this color, I'm going to get those other. This is a little cooler down here. Then when it gets up towards the top, it's really being influenced more by the red top. So the color is a little bit warmer. Just let those colors link themselves together, marry themselves. Same in here. Here, this one's being really influenced by the blue jar, the bouncing colors. So that can come across here. And of course, the blue is being influenced by that. But these aren't hard lines. So we'll just add a little bit of water and soften them in parts while they're still wet. I can keep my shape that way and then this here just works up. And then this is round, so we'll just like that. I'm almost out of this. Wow. That shadow is quite dark. Don't like this. That's better. Watercolor, like why color theory is so important, because you do have to work so fast to make your watercolors work. And understanding good color theory, so you're not like struggling, oh, what do I dip into now? What do I go? Where do I go from here? What color do I use? It's just like, oh, it's neutral gray, it's neutral green, so I must use this. And the other thing is that we have to, we'll learn a little bit more in the next weeks how colors are related to one another, right? How they connect, how they reflect. Come along really quickly, hey? I might have to stop here because it's 9:16. I only really have one more wash to do, which are the highlights, or I see how tired I am, are the details, like the dark nose, the details here. Oh, what I didn't do, and I should do before I dry it, because I'll lose the connections of colors, is get that darker red in. I put the shadows of the teddy bear in, but not the shadows of the red. So I'm mixing my cad red and my alizarin crimson together. And I could put a little French ultramarine to push it to the violet, but I think the alizarin crimson is probably enough for this.
We had a question mark about the angle of your board. What is the angle?
I like to work on quite an angle. Some people have, it's about, I don't know, 30% maybe, or 30 degrees. I'll just quickly show you here. That gives you any indication. So I just have the difference of two tables, that board on the table. You see that pitch?
Oh, yes.
Quite an angle. But I like it. I need to run down. I need to control that bead. Is super important. But I want to just get this in, then I'm going to call it quits that before it dries, and then that's it. And then I will finish it and send it in. I'm a bit fast and sloppy, two different things, and I'm getting a little sloppy. That's not good. But I feel like being fluid with watercolor is super important. And it's these dark shapes that the value change. Yeah, I've blown the top. I waited a little bit too long. I'd forgotten. And that's okay. You can still, I can go back, but I like to have these like transitions from here to here, like connected with soft edges. You can always make hard edges in a painting, develop them. In watercolor, it's just so difficult. Like to soften edges, you got to scrub them. And a scrubbed edge doesn't ever look as pure, as clean as it. It makes watercolor a little unique and more difficult to work with than the other mediums. But I got a little sloppy in some areas here, I have to admit. So I think it's going to be okay. I think when it dries, it'll flatten. But what I do like is that I've got developed good contrast, right? What I don't like is that if you look at the shirt, I've missed the chroma on his shirt. You see? So I gotta let this dry and go back and do a glaze, try as hard as I can to bring that chroma up. It's so difficult in watercolor, but it needs to be, it's a darker value anyway, so I'm okay with that, but it needs to be a higher chroma, okay, to get that shirt glowing. Otherwise, it's still the yellow that's so dominant, and the exercise here was about the green background, right? Here, I've done the demonstration more naturally, and I carved back the red shirt as well. But you can see on this guy that's finished how the red top was played down to lift the yellow. But on this one of my more favorite ones, and quite a large one, painted standing up, still yellow, neutral violet background, darker and vibrant yellow. These are all super quick demonstrations too, I should say, just like today's. They're not labored paintings. Anyway, I'm done. Thanks for joining me today, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over
Was
to
there,
You so much.
Thank you
Was
so
there-
much, Mark. That's awesome.
Good.
was there an assignment?
There is. I'm gonna email you. I'm gonna email you, like I did yesterday, the recording, And a couple of things. One thing you're going to want to do is the assignment of analogous colors, complementary colors, and simultaneous contrast that I showed you. The other thing that we're going to do is I want you to play around with colors. There's no homework in that, but to play around with these ideas of try and create some of those effects with cutout pieces of colored paper, anything from cardboard boxes to whatever you might find at home, and see what you can create. And finally, you're all going to get, I think, in your handout that I sent in your original package, you have the pictures of Winnie the Pooh. I want you to make a painting of Winnie the Pooh in your medium, of choice.
Great, thanks, Mark. Great call.
Okay,
You,
Okay,
thank you.
good night.
Sorry we went so far beyond the limit today, but
Oh,
thank
good.
Oh, it's great.
was awesome.
All good information. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great
Yeah, good night.
Night.
I love one comment. Thank you, you're Fabio.
What's that?
You need to read the chat.
Oh, all right. I better read it before I go because I don't know where it's saved to the last time.
Oh, it'll have a Zoom folder
Okay,
on
yeah.
your computer. All right, well, I'm done.
Okay, bye for now.
So thanks.